Hey everyone, welcome back. So in the last video, we were talking about how monetary policy is consists of one set of tools through which we can try to influence aggregate demand via the financial system through controlling the supply of money, credit, and the level of interest rates, which might make investment more or less attractive for firms. So to continue our conversation, I just want to clarify what it is that we're talking about when we say the supply of money in the system. So first of all, I want to address the question, what is money in general? Okay, so generally when we're talking about money, we're concerned with um, some kind of asset or something that's owned, which can be used for a few different things. One is this asset should be some kind of medium of exchange. Okay, a medium of exchange. So this should be some kind of asset that can be used to purchase goods and services. So it should be something that's accepted or widely accepted in exchange for goods or services. Okay. The second characteristic of money should be that it's used as a unit of account. So by this I mean that um, we use money to measure things, even if they're not um, sold in some kind of market transaction. So by unit of account, I mean that we use this asset to measure the value of things. So even if we're not selling this thing that we're measuring, we still use money as a way to measure what the value is. For instance, if you're um, thinking about the value of a home, or a house for which you pay property taxes, um, local towns and city governments will value or attempt to estimate what the market value of a house is, so that they can assess what the property taxes would be. So we use this um, to uh, measure who owns what or who owes what to whom. The other characteristic is that this asset should be a store of value. Okay, so if we're talking about a store of value, um, we mean that this asset that we're calling money should um, be such that if you hold this asset for a while, you can still use it after some period of time, still use it as um, a medium of exchange. So there are lots of assets which we can use to store value, right? So what makes money different? Well, we're talking about a store of value that is very liquid. So um, what's what I might say is unique about money is that um, it its liquidity. Is liquidity is what makes it unique. So when we're talking about liquidity, we mean that um, we're concerned with how quickly or how easily some asset can be converted to cash, or can be um, how easily it can be converted to a medium of exchange. Okay, so if we say that an asset is very liquid, then we mean that it can be very quickly converted into a medium of exchange where we can use it to purchase goods and services. So more specifically, um, we have different definitions of the money supply based on the liquidity of the asset. So there can be a bunch of different assets we might call money, but um, we can classify them based on how liquid they are or how easily it is to convert them to some uh, medium of exchange. So some definitions that we use, or common definitions, um, are, like, first of all, somewhat arbitrary, but um, tell us something about the supply of money in terms of liquidity. So, all right, so the most liquid um, definition of money supply. So the definition of the money supply that includes the most liquid assets is what we call the M1 money supply. So what this consists of is all the currency in circulation, okay? All the currency in the system, all the green pieces of paper that are circulating in the economy, plus all the checking deposits. So these are sort of like currency, but it's basically digital currency. But they're very liquid assets in the sense that we can use them to purchase things. Generally, that's what we do when we're purchasing goods or services and we swipe our debit card. At some level, we're paying with checking deposits, right? We're not paying with pieces of paper or currency itself. We're paying with checking deposits, which are happen to be promises to pay currency. But we treat them as money, right? We have money in the bank, and that's what we can use to purchase things. The M1 money supply, and these are definitions that come from the Federal Reserve, also consists of traveler's checks, but these days that really isn't an important component. No one really uses them anymore. Okay, so that includes the most liquid assets that we would call money. We also have a more broad definition, which we call the M2 money supply, which includes everything that's in the M1's money supplies, the currency in circulation, checking deposits, and I guess traveler's checks, if that's still a thing. So it includes everything in M1 plus some other money-like assets that aren't as liquid in the sense that you have to make maybe another step before you use them to purchase goods and services. So this could include, or does include, savings deposits, also small time deposits, and these are things like certificates of deposit, right? You deposit money in the bank for some period of time, and you can't withdraw it early. It also includes retail money market mutual funds. And we'll talk about more about these later. But what essentially these are is kind of savings deposit substitutes, right? So retail money market mutual funds, you put your money into these accounts, and the those shares of this fund are investing in very safe liquid assets themselves. So these might pay a little bit higher return than savings deposit. They in a large part function as substitutes for saving deposits under normal circumstances. But we'll talk more about that later. This piece small and retail, to note that we're talking about the denominations that um, households are involved with. Um, so um, so we're not talking about institutional money market mutual funds, which are much larger in denomination. So we can think about different money assets as um, existing on some kind of continuum. So we can think about a liquidity continuum of money assets, where we have, on one hand, our more liquid assets. So we'll say, going from right to left, we have um, more liquid, and going from left to right, we have less liquid. And we have this sort of spectrum of money assets going from more liquid to less liquid. Whereas the most liquid asset that you could get is just currency itself. So the physical green pieces of paper. Okay, so that's the most liquid. It's the easiest, or the um, the ultimate medium of exchange, if you will. Maybe something that's a little bit less liquid, could be checking deposits, for instance. It's not quite currency, but it's close. And then maybe somewhere further down the spectrum is um, maybe something like a corporate bond, which is, you might easily be able to sell to get checking deposits or to get currency, but it's not quite a medium of exchange. You can't take a corporate bond to the grocery store to buy your groceries, right? So it's not quite there. So in that respect, we have sort of these financial assets, which are really IOUs, in the sense that checking deposits that we get when we put money in the bank are promises to pay currency. It's an IOU, right? We get these checking deposits, which give us the right to come into the bank and ask for our currency, or ask for currency in exchange for these deposits. Whereas, say, a corporate bond or some other kind of financial assets, generally a promise to pay currency or to pay checking deposits at some point in the future, right? So these are more liquid as you get towards currency. But you also could have other assets which are a store of value. We'll say there's other assets which are less liquid, in the sense that it takes more work to convert them into something that we can use to purchase goods or services. So even something like a precious metal, which some people would argue is money, is not really something you can use directly to buy goods or services. So it's going to take some kind of other step to get towards um, a medium of exchange. But something like real estate, while could be another store of value, takes much more work to get into a form that you could purchase goods or services. So it's very illiquid, or much less liquid than, say, a even corporate bond or a checking deposit, and definitely currency. So real estate, while it's a store of value, um, takes a lot of work to convert to a medium of exchange, right? You have to list it, and you have to find a broker that's going to find somebody willing to buy the real estate, and it may take months or even years um, to actually get this real estate into deposits. Okay, so although there's many different assets or money assets that we could consider um, to be a store of value, um, not all of them are equally as liquid or equally as able to be used as a medium of exchange. Okay, so what I want to do in the next video is um, talk about where the financial system, or where the banking system, financial intermediaries come in, and how we think about the money creation process, or how money and credit are created in the financial system. Okay, so I'll see you all then.